Tapes of Trepidation presents The 12 Scares of Christmas. Day 5. The Nicest Man on Holly Street. Written by J. Phillip Morris. Christmas in the city looks better from a distance. If you're high up enough, staring out an office window, it's simple. Soft orange streetlights, bling-colored bulbs in apartment windows, a thin sheet of snow covering the trash on the sidewalks. The sounds blur together into something that feels almost peaceful. Carols from a radio, a bus signing to stop, laughter from a bar where people are pretending they still like each other. But the closer you get to the ground, the more the magic frays. You start to notice the arguments echoing through thin walls. The way the snow turns gray around the edges, chewing up footprints and tire tracks. The smell of old beer and exhaust and desperation. And if you walk far enough past the nice neighborhoods and the tasteful wreaths and the little plastic reindeer on the lawns, you hit the streets where the lights don't quite reach, where the decorations are whatever people could scavenge or steal, where the cold doesn't mean cozy right in. It just means your fingers hurt a little more while you're trying to make rent. Victor Callahan saw all of it. He just chose which parts counted. By day, he was exactly what people said he was, the nicest man on Holly Street. He'd earned that title. Held doors, carried groceries, cleared the snow from the sidewalk in front of the old woman's duplex before she even woke up to see it. Wore good suits that made people assume professional instead of dangerous. Smiled with just the right amount of teeth. He had a firm handshake, remembered names, and sent out Christmas cards with neat handwriting and generic well wishes. The kind of man you asked for directions. The kind of man who'd walk behind you at night and you'd feel relieved instead of tense. The mask worked because he wore it all the time, even when he was alone. That's the part people don't get. If you lie about who you are long enough, eventually the lie sits down right next to you on the couch and starts helping you pick out your tie. December was his favorite month. The city did half his work for him. Snow covered evidence. Storms kept decent people inside. Everyone who was out that late in the cold had a reason. And usually it wasn't a good one. He also liked the way Christmas made people generous with their trust. They were so eager to believe in kind strangers and holiday miracles that they never stopped to ask why the nice man in the perfect coat was out there with them in the dark, instead of safely tucked away somewhere warm. On paper, Victor's life looked clean. Respectable job, upper middle class address, a track record of showing up on time and never causing trouble. He took polite women on polite dates to nice restaurants. Teachers, office assistants, aspiring nurses. Women with futures. Women who posted their dinners on social media and called their mothers on Sundays. He treated them well, They didn't even have to fake him. Paid the bill, walked them to their cabs, let them think he was simply busy when he didn't call back. Those women weren't for him. Not the real him. They were props on a stage he'd built. Proof for the world that he was exactly what he seemed. The other side of his life was under flickering streetlights and neon signs that buzzed louder than they shone. He found the girl with the green coat on Wednesday. It wasn't much of a coat. The kind of wool that pulls up after one winter and never quite keeps the wind out. The hem was starting to fray, and the sleeves were coming loose at the lining. She kept lugging them back into place like they'd magically fix themselves if she did it enough times. She stood near the mouth of the alley, hands jammed into her pockets, shifting from one foot to the other to keep the blood moving. Too new to the life to pretend she wasn't freezing. Too proud to admit the cold was winning. He watched her from across the street first. People like him could stand anywhere and not be questioned. A man in a good coat, holding a to-go cup, glancing at his watch. No one wondered why he was there. They just moved around him. Someone called her name once. "Lena, your coat's falling apart again." A rough voice. Another woman a little older, a little more worn down, with makeup fighting a losing battle against the snow. Lena laughed it off. That sound carried across the street to where Victor stood. A sound that didn't belong on that corner, at that hour. That was how he chose her. Not the coat, not the face, the laugh. That stubborn, stupid little piece of hope still clinging to her like the snow on her hair. He took 3 nights to be sure. He never rushed to the section. He watched her pattern, learned which corner she drifted to when the traffic slowed, noted who she talked to, who she avoided. Whenever anyone seemed protective of her, watched the way she held herself when cops drove by, when cars slowed down, when doors opened and shut. She was cautious, but not careful enough. She believed that danger looked like a guy with wild eyes and dirty clothes. Not someone like him. That was another thing he relied on. People think monsters crawl out of shadows. They never consider that some of them are perfectly comfortable under bright lights. On the 4th night, he brought the Cadillac. It wasn't the car he drove to work. That one was more sensible. Boring on purpose. The Cadillac was for nights like this. Long body, smooth engine, leather seats that still held the faint smell of someone else's cigarettes from long ago. Old enough to stand out in a bad neighborhood. Nice enough to feel like a small upgrade to anyone who climbed in. The snow had started again. The sky was thick of it. Holiday lights blinked on a building across the way, making the snowflakes flash red, green, red, green. The air tasted like exhaust and cold metal. He pulled up to the curb and waited. Engine idling, heat on low. Radio turned down to a soft murmur. Some crooner singing about chestnuts and open fires for people who could afford both. Lena saw the car. She pretended she hadn't. She let it sit there for a full minute while she finished her cigarette, stubbed it out with a boot that had lost its shine, and glanced up and down the street. Then she approached the window. There wasn't much to the conversation. There didn't need to be. Her voice up close was sanded down by exhaust. But that laugh still lived under the words. A little nervous, a little hopeful. He gave her the usual lines, the ones that said, "I respect you," without actually meaning anything. He kept his tone warm, his eyes steady, his hands visible on the steering wheel. She got in the car. If she hesitated, it was only for half a heartbeat. Her body made the decision faster than her brain did. Warm car, clean man, decent coat, kind eyes. Everything inside her that still wanted to believe in, maybe this won't be terrible. Once the door shut, the city felt farther away. Just the sound of the heater, the faint hum of the tires, the occasional hiss of slush under the wheels as he pulled away from the curb. They drove. Conversations skimmed the surface. Names that may or may not have been real. Lies so practiced they sound like the truth even to the person telling them. She asked what he did. He gave the job title he always used. Respectable. Vague. Impossible to disprove without a full background check no one would ever run. The important part wasn't what they said. It was that she didn't notice the direction. Every turn he took peeled away another layer of safety. Farther from the main road. Farther from late-night diners and all-night gas stations. Past the point where any reasonable person would say, "This is too far." Reasonable people weren't usually in her position. Out the window, the world grew emptier. Fewer lights, more boarded-up windows, a lot of "for lease" signs nobody was ever going to call. The Christmas spirit got thin out here. Decorations hung crooked or not at all. A single sad string of bulbs draped over a chain-link fence, blinking like a dying heartbeat. Eventually, even that fell away. He turned down a side street the plows hadn't bothered with yet. Snow lay in thick, untouched sheets. The car's headlights carved tunnels through the falling white. The beams catching individual flakes for a second before they vanished against the windshield. He eased the car to a stop near the edge of a lot that used to be something. A warehouse, maybe? Or a small factory. Before the city forgot about it. The engine went quiet. Silence in winter hits differently. There's a weight to it. The kind of stillness that makes a person feel suddenly, painfully aware of their own breath. In that quiet, Realization finally caught up with her. Everyone gets a moment. The split second where their body understands something their mind doesn't want to accept. Some feel it when a hand goes where it shouldn't. Some feel it when they notice a locked door, a blocked exit, a road they don't recognize. Lena's moment was here, with the engine ticking as it cooled, snow patting softly against the roof, and the ugly truth rising in the back of her throat. She reached for the door handle. He watched quietly without moving. Every part of him was calm, heart rate steady, hands relaxed. He'd done this before. Fear was familiar to him, just never his own. The handle didn't save her. The snow outside was deep and unforgiving. The night wide and empty. The nearest help a long, cold run away. But reaching for it was still human. Maybe the most human thing she did in her last hour. The city moved on. Storms came through. Another layer of snow fell. Then another. Plows carved lines through the main streets, piling gray slush into walls at the corners. People cursed the ice, complained about the cold, kept living their lives. It was 2 days before anyone had found the impression in the snow at the edge of the forgotten lot. A group of kids had dragged sleds further away from where they were supposed to. They always do. One of them spotted it first. A shape half covered, like someone had made a snow angel and left before finishing. Arms out, legs together. Not exactly right, but close enough to look like play at a distance. Up close, it didn't look like play. The stain in the middle was faint, but wrong. Seeping up through the thin, wind-scraped layer of white. The screaming brought the adults. The adults brought the police. The police brought tape and cameras and standard issue language about a tragic accident under investigation. The news covered it for a day. A young woman, no ID on her. Possibly a sex worker. Probably. The words slid into the reports like a shrug. People clicked their tongues and shook their heads and changed the channel to Christmas specials and cooking shows. Holly Street talked about it too, briefly. The widow at the end of the block mentioned how terrible it all was while accepting a bag of groceries from Victor Callahan. The parents across the street told their kids to stay where they could see them. Lights still went up. Trees still got decorated. Life, for everyone who wasn't Lena, went on. When the detective knocked on Victor's door, he was ready. Of course he'd heard the news. Awful thing. Really? He invited them in out of the cold, offered coffee, apologized that he had only had the cheap stuff. He really should have picked up something nicer for guests. They asked him where he'd been that night. He had an answer. He always did. A receipt, a neighbor who'd seen him, a detail about the storm that made him sound attentive and responsible. He made eye contact. Not too much, not too little. Let concern show on his face. Let it crack once, just a little, as if the thought of such cruelty hurt him personally. By the time they left, they were thanking him for his time. One even apologized for bothering him so close to the holidays. He watched them go, then quietly closed the door. The house was warm. The tree in the corner glowed with white lights he'd wrapped just so. No gaps, no overlaps. Ornaments hung evenly spaced. Nothing sentimental, nothing homemade. All curated, all controlled. He walked over to the tree and bent down to place another present underneath it. Small box, neat wrapping, green ribbon. He straightened, looked at the tree for a long moment, and then smiled to himself. Not the big neighborly one, the smaller one. The one nobody ever saw. Outside, someone's radio played carols loud enough to carry down the street. Kids' laughter bounced off the snow. Somewhere, a dog barked at nothing and was told to hush. On Holly Street, people slept soundly, comforted by the idea that bad things happen somewhere else, to other people, for reasons they never have to understand. And the nicest house on the block, the nicest man they knew leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes and rested. Men like Victor didn't need miracles to keep them safe. They just needed everyone to believe that monsters didn't wear good suits and shovel their neighbors' sidewalks. The snow would fall again. The streets would clear. The city would forget. He wouldn't. There was always next Christmas.